Shalom and welcome to Practical Spirituality here in the holy city of Yerushalayim. And we are going to look at a piece of Zohar. Normally you're not allowed to teach Gentile Zohar. But in this particular case, it's not a Kabbalistic Zohar. It's actually talking about what's going to happen in the end of days. And it's a pretty interesting piece. And now that Trump is in office, I'm wondering if this is exactly setting up a disaster. I was speaking to a young man who was plans to join the American Army, soon. This is a guy with payas and a beard. Payas and a beard, yeah. He's a kid. And I was like, why don't you join the Israeli army? He's like, because they're very strict on shooting people. This kid just wants to kill people, but I said to him, listen, they may be very strict about you can't just kill people, but but I have a feeling based on this Zohar that the American army is not going to be doing so hot very soon. So listen up. And the piece is going to start with the Arab claim on the land of Israel and preventing Israel from showing up here. So it's going to start with that, having to do with the merit they have, which is the merit of the Brit Milah. I may skip along for this part a bit because you don't know so much more than that. But let's just take a quick look. So it says like this. So come see what the circumcision of Yishmael means the Arab world, what their circumcision has caused. So it says like this. Now, it's important to know that every nation in the world has a ministering angel, that God runs that nation through the ministering angel. And so Yishmael has their own ministering angel, and it's in it's having a discussion with God. And it says, Mishanimol yeshlo chelek, yeshlo chelek. So anyone who is circumcised has a portion in Israel. So God says back, so he says back to him, and Yishmael says, and ours is even more of a merit because we do our circumcisions on the 13th day, 13th year. 13th year. So that's like a bigger merit because it's going to hurt a lot more. It's like a heavy duty surgery, getting circumcised at 13 ain't pretty. You can bring a chair around. So I like a chair right between these two guys. Would be great. So
eight-day-old baby doesn't know what's going on, but a 13-year-old does know what's going on.
Yeah, 13-year-old's having a hard time. And because he could have run away at 13, 8 days old, you can't run away. Because he could have run away, and he didn't, says the angel, they should have a nice portion like a real claim on the land of Israel. But not like the 8-day-old Yitzchak, who had no choice in the matter. It says, so why doesn't he have a portion? Why didn't he have a claim on Israel? Because Yitzchak nimol kerui uchonochoin b'mila v'friya. Because Yitzchak was circumcised properly, and Yishmael was not. Yishmael, all that was cut was the foreskin, but the peeling back of another membrane, which is called priya, like the flowering or the fruiting, the priya, the causing this pulling down of that membrane, that's the actual circumcision. Meaning you have to have both. You don't just cut the foreskin. You got to pull back this membrane, or it's not considered a good circumcision. And so that wasn't done. I think, by the way, there may be that if someone has a circumcision done by a doctor, Many people are circumcised by doctors, not with no ceremony at all, no blessings, no nothing. So the doctor is not going to know about pulling down that membrane. You'll notice that circumcisers are moils, yeah. They have true long thumbnails, pointy, sharp thumbnails that they use to split the membrane and then peel down. Split the membrane. There's no blood in this membrane. It's a very, very thin membrane. Anyway, so let's keep going. So is it?
So if it's a medical
medical bris, what does the guy do? Later he becomes observant. He realizes he never had a bris. So what about all the brachas and everything? So there's no peeling back membranes for that guy. But what they will do is they will do a pin prick, pardon the pun, and take a little blood from him
in order to make it halakhic.
Yeah, to make it that he had a halachic bris, not just a medical bris. And by the way, since we're talking about bris, we're talking about covenant. And what covenant means, like a connection forever, like you're making an eternal covenant with someone. And it's just so cool that the covenant of God with the Jewish people is on the most pleasurable part of the entire body, which is just the biggest I love you from God to you that there could ever be. And I think that itself is a good way for a young man who's trying to withhold from spilling seed to know that this was God's I love you dedicated to one's relationship with their spouse in kedusha v'tar and sanctity and purity. That this was saved, it's to be saved for that, because this is God's big I love you. He's saying, like, where you get the most pleasure is where I want you to have me in mind. And it's even brought down that Kabbalistically at the moment of one's most pleasure, at the actual moment, that it's a good idea or good practice to make sure it's pitch black in the room at that point. Just like Shema. Shema is pitch black. And like when you say Shema, you don't just close your eyes, you make it pitch black by covering the closed eyes. And which means, because all there is God, and God is one. And at your greatest pleasure, like Yaakov Avinu's greatest pleasure was to finally see Yosef, he said Shema. And so too, that one's intimacy with one's spouse is another level of Shema. It's a oneness, becoming one. In the ultimate, one flesh, as Adam and Eve were blessed to have. So, anyway, so Yishmael was not done halachically. It wasn't done right. He only had the Mila, not the Priya. And another reason why the children of Isaac are, in a better status regarding this. Shebnei Yitzchak misdavkim bi karui b'nei shmoni yomim, and also because the 8th day was one of the halachas. They're meaning it is 8 days. It says on the 8th day, so it doesn't say on the 13th day. The whole 13th day thing was that Yishmael was 13 when it was time to do.
13th year, the day as opposed 8th day as opposed 13th as opposed to 13th
Right.
year.
So sorry. And Yishmael is 13 years old when Abraham gets the command to circumcise himself and his children and everyone. But then it goes on to say that it's supposed to be on the 8th day. So Yitzchak's doing it. So the Jewish people are doing it right on the 8th day. And it's kind of random they're doing it on the 13th day.
Year.
13th year. Uvnei Yishmael rechukim mimeni, and the Ishmaelites are far from me. Shenasim b'nei Yud Gimel, they do it on the 13th year. And so it's disgusting to God. Like a lot of people would think it was disgusting to be taking a 13-year-old young man, probably through puberty if he's Arab. Arabs go through puberty when they're 9, So taking that kid and, hitting the piece of roast beef with a knife is like pretty rough. And it says right here that the Zohar says it's disgusting to God, this milah. And they do not earn the oneness with God through it. So what happens was the Sar, the ministering angel of Ishmael, says back to God, he says, and he says, what, you want to say he doesn't get any reward? And then it says, Rabbi Chia says, he's sad about it, he's misoynin about it. Rabbi Chia says, Oy vay, shenolad Yishmael ba'olam v'nimol. Oy vay, that Yishmael was even born. Because, he was in a situation where he was dying, because God said, get this kid out of here, or Abraham said, get this kid out of here. Sorry. Sarah said, get this kid out of here. And she sent him out. He was going to die. And God says, no, he's going to live. And there's a reason why Ishmael is alive, by the way. This is all part of bigger plans, Where were all the fossil fuels stored? In the lands of Ishmael. Who were the drug addicts who wanted the fossil fuels? Certainly not Ishmael. They don't need a lot of fossil fuels. They all live in tents. They're very simple people, except for the king. Obviously, the rulers have Lamborghinis, but the other billion of them, simple people. So who are the drug addicts? Esav, Edom. They love the oil. They need the oil. And so it was set up perfectly that Edom, who's the drug addict, needs the oil, and Ishmael is the pusher, So it turns out that Israel would always be like stuck between these two forces. Like we're always in the middle of this whole thing. So whatever everything's meant to be. It's all part of a plan.
If I could comment that the Rambam, he says that the Muslims, they're descendants of Ishmael. And also the Christians, they helped spread the idea of monotheism.
Right. Oh yeah, sure.
In the world.
Sure. Yeah.
As opposed to the pagans.
Yeah, of course. And the Jews have done a fairly lousy job of spreading monotheism throughout the world. We're nothing but trouble for the world.
The second half of that's really interesting, though. It says, Ron says, they get it wrong. And if you one of the things I was talking to somebody that really recognized was kind of crazy. If you look at which name they each pick for God, it's literally like a total rebellion of their father. Ishmael, it goes with Elokeinu, Allah, right? And he's super stringent. And Abraham is Rahmana, and then Edom is Esav. And what turns into Rome, what turns into Christianity nowadays. They go with Yud-K, Vav-K, right? They have the witnesses and everything. They use that name. And that's all about grace. They say, I can do this because I'll be forgiven. And they take it to the other extreme against Yitzchak, who was all about being stringent.
Right.
So it's almost like you're watching the family unfold and
between these attributes. And there's also an interesting one is Christianity started right after Temple Judaism. If you look at Christianity, what's Temple Judaism? It's location central, Jerusalem. It's fancy outfits, fancy buildings. It's like priest-centered. Priests do all the service. And then the temple was destroyed. Christianity starts and just does a full mimic of the temple service with the incense offerings and everything. And the what happens 700 years later, when we're now in 700 years of synagogue Judaism, the Arabs develop Islam. What's Islam? It's a takeoff on synagogue Judaism. Literally a takeoff on synagogue Judaism. Not church central. You see the guys praying on the sides of highways, just like the Jews. There's priesthood is besides Birkas Kohanim. Their priesthood has almost no hand in things. It's not priest central. It's not location central, and it's Yeah, and it's just come one, come all, and located everywhere. And it's, so it's kind of they're both takeoffs on that. And what was I going to share with you? Another thing is, that's very interesting, is that those are the externals of Judaism. Temple service, Christianity. Synagogue service, Islam. What's left? The Eastern traditions. But guess what? If you sit down with if you know Kabbalah, and you sit down with a scholar of Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, those things, guess what? It's like they have like almost everything in common. But when you take the Jewish mysticism and sit down with a Christian or an Islam, they have like nothing in common. You understand? Our mysticism is non-dualistic. In Christianity and Islam are like the epitome of dualistic. There's this world and then there's God, and whereas Kabbalah, our mystical tradition, this is God. We're in God right now. That's all there is. And you think that's outdoors out there. That's not outdoors. See the parking lot out there? That's also in God. Everything's in God. If anything leaves God, that means God ended and it began, which is no longer an infinite God. And so you'll see that the mysticism of Judaism is just like the Eastern traditions. And the external Judaism is just like Islam and Christianity. So anyway, that's some interesting stuff. Again, I'm thinking of skipping this whole discussion because we're almost done with it. Wait till you hear the end of days stuff that's about to happen. But the bottom line, there's something you need to know though. The thing you need to know is that in the future, Lishlut Be'eretz HaKodesh, the Islamists, the Arabs will rule over Eretz HaKodesh, the Holy Land. It says straight here in Zohar. Zohar is thousands of years ago. It says that the Yishmaelim will rule over the Holy Land.
Isn't that only if we don't hold up Yeshuva?
What?
Is that only if we don't hold up Yeshuva? Like there's two ways of Hashem, right?
Yeah, but don't go there now because you got to hear the next words. When Kish Eretz HaKodesh Reka Mehako Ve'omedesh Shmama. When will Yishmael have when will their bris milah give them rights over the rulership of this land? When the land is empty of all.
Empty of all mitzvahs.
And in this case, it means there's nothing here. And ve'omedesh shmama, and it will be standing desolate, which is exactly what the Torah says. Torah says that we have the only land in the world that actually responds to its inhabitants. If all the people in Switzerland were suddenly like misbehaving, and God says, "You're out of here," because again, Israel's the only place with a digestive system. Israel either it absorbs you or spits you out. And so, but imagine just Switzerland suddenly like wound up with the same digestive mechanism that Israel has, and it spits out all the Swiss people. Can you imagine going back there in 100 years and there's not one tree? Wouldn't happen. You go back there and there's no grass. You go back there, there's no vegetation. The land doesn't care if there are people there or not. Israel, on the other hand, it's one of the wonders of Jewish history, is that when the Jewish people will not be in the land will turn to desolation.
Even if other people are in the land.
Doesn't matter who's here. Once the Jewish people are gone, the place can't grow a tomato. It's just gone. And guess what? Have you guys noticed how rocky the soil is? Like how like little soil there is? Well, what happens with 2,000 years of rain with no vegetation? Well, LA is about to find that out. And that's called erosion, landslides. Everything just goes out to the sea. So geologists actually searched for the land of Israel. Where's the land? They took samples of our mountains and whatever, and they're like trying to find it. Where to go? You can't disappear. So guess what? They found the land of Israel. You know where it is? The land of Israel is right off Egypt, in the ocean. They found a mound of earth under the ocean of the Mediterranean. What happened was all the years and years of rivers shooting down all the soil until it just went down with the currents towards Egypt. And it created this whole huge area of Israeli soil in Egypt. And of course, everyone should look up, just to read it, it's such good writing, is Mark Twain writing about when he visited the land of Israel. How long ago was Mark Twain alive?
120 years?
100.
Okay, it was the 1800s. He came to visit Israel, and he just goes like on and on about how he's never seen anything so desolate in his life as the land of Israel. And we also have recordings of how fruitful the land was. Years back, this was the land of plenty. You know, like there was so much grazing land that the sheep, the udders of the sheep were dripping milk just onto the ground, and like rivers of milk flowing by. You know, dates were just dripping with honey, and they were mixing with each other. You know, it was like, but there's non-Torah sources talking about the bounty of this land. At the time, it was a very coveted land for its soil, its richness. Now,
She's living now. Why is it?
What's that?
Why is it desolate now?
It's not desolate at all. Are you kidding? We're like teaching agriculture to Saharan Africa and stuff. We are the most unbelievably bountiful country. In fact, most of the times you guys eat food here, like these strawberries that once were. They were probably picked in like the last 24 hours. I mean, it's like we're eating the freshest food in the world, and everyone talks about the freshness of Israel's food, and forests covering the entire country, and just unbelievable bounty that's come since we moved back to land.
If you go down south, towards the land, that's not so.
Well, that's the negative. It's a little dry down there.
Well, it's not even part of Israel.
Right, but once you pass Hebron and gets further south, things get dry down there.
But it's not even part of.
South of Hebron is Israel.
It's not even part of.
Beersheba.
After that, not really.
Once you leave Beersheba, it's not so Israel.
A little past it. It's not.
Rabbi, did it pass that stage that it was already here and it was dry, and then we came back? So then we passed that part?
So listen, so only will they have rule over the land when the land is still in the curse of desolation, that as a result of the Jews being thrown out of the land. Harbezman v'atam, for a long time, v'atam she'ikablu es hashlita al Eretz Yisrael she'iyu rekanis mipnei she'i kamo milasam. The reason that they get the land when it's desolate is because it's just like their desolate circumcisions. It's like their circumcision. She'i reka, which is empty. Ve'eno b'shlemus bli priya, because it's not fulfilled if it doesn't have the membrane floured out. It has to have the membrane pulled down. And l'chein mida keneged mida, therefore measure for measure, mekablim alei schar lishlot al Eretz Yisrael. So they get reward. Yeah, you circumcise yourself, fine, you get reward. What's your reward? Your reward is that you get the land of Israel when it's rake, when it's empty. So, and uvnei Yishmael yachvu melach so lemakomam. But turns out that they're going to, it says right here in Zohar, they're not going to leave so fast when the Jews come back. Yakfu. They are going to delay. Meaning the Jews are going to come back for the times of Mashiach, and the land's going to start bearing its fruit, and they're not going to leave so fast. And tistayem hazuchus, because their merit ended, but they're not leaving. They're not leaving. They're going to try to plant themselves here. Shenimulim, ukeshistayem zchus kiyumam be'eretz hakodesh, asidim in the future. What are they going to do? They're going to the Arabs are going to stir up strong wars in the world. Exactly what's happening. Exactly. They're going to stir up l'orer, like wake up. Milchamot chazakot, strong wars, like big wars. Milchamot are always strong. This is wars that are going to be like crazy wars in the land. Ulasoif, and in the end, et b'nei Edom aleo alehem. And guess what's going to happen? The Westerners, the Americans, we're going to call let me tell you who b'nei they're called b'nei Edom. Who are the Westerners? So
Christianity.
So it's the whole Christian world, whatever it is. It's ancient Europe became modern Europe, became, today's Europe, which spills into, obviously, with the Mayflower America. But here's the main thing. Whoever is the highest military or financial power is called Edom. Whoever it is at the time. So if Italy's at the top, they're Edom. If Germany's at the top, they're Edom. If France is at the top, they're Edom. No, China's Ham. They're from Bnei Ham, totally different line. We spoke about them yesterday.
Yeah,
What?
I'm saying, what if they...
Right now, America's at the top, and they're up there with like France and Britain. That's why whenever America does something, generally you'll notice there's some French troops in there, and there's some British troops in there. They're pretty allied, those guys. Beyond NATO. By the way, do they have their own name? I don't think they do. They're just NATO countries that... NATO is that plus Turkey. NATO is Western Edomites plus a couple throw-ins like Turkey. But they're thinking of throwing Turkey out of the whole place. So anyway, the point is like this. They're going to come up against the Ishmaelites. Yeah? And and they're going to make fights, ready for this, in 3 places. Tell me if this doesn't sound familiar. They're going to fight with them. So it's going to be Echad al Hayam, ve'Echad al Hayabasha, ve'Echad samuch Yerushalayim. V'yishlatu ilu ilain be'ilain. V'yishlatu b'nei elu, meaning b'nei Edom, b'nei Yishmael, ve'lahafech, k'derech ha'nelchamim, shepamim zeh, minatzeh upamim zeh. They're going to go for the land, the sea, and they're going to go, and it's going to be close to Jerusalem. Well, what's the land? The land is a couple places. The land is maybe Gaza. The land is probably going to be Lebanon, Syria areas. But there's going to be, the West is going to come up against Ishmael. Is going to come up against the Arabs. And it's going to be on land. Where's the sea?
Mediterranean? No, or down south where the Houthis.
I'm guessing that it's the Houthi area. It's going to be, it's already happening. It's already happening. Where
And Iran.
Iran would be.
Houthis and Iran.
Yeah. And it's the land, it's the sea, and around Jerusalem. What's around Jerusalem? Yehuda and Shomron, which is our new area of war now. Where that Israel is now going, meaning we'll probably finish with the Gaza deal, which is, how long is the whole thing supposed to take?
90 days, I think.
90 days? But Israel's totally set up now to go to war against the people in Shomron, which is just north of us, Sumerian mountains, just north of Jerusalem, and the Judean hills, Yehuda, south of us. But they're gonna make war there.
What's the word for land? It says Hayam.
Hayam, yeah, and Yabasha, like Yavesh, dry, the dry land.
You're missing a major thing.
Yeah.
That Israel, the state of Israel is going to war against the Jewish people by drafting the yeshiva bachar.
Yeah, we're not going to discuss that. We're not discussing the drafting of the yeshiva. Anyway, but they're going to go back and forth like wars do, where like one's going to be doing better and crushing the other, and then the other one's going to crush the other. They're going to be like totally going back and forth on this. Western countries against the Arab countries, back and forth on the land, on the sea, and close to Jerusalem. So listen to this. Aval, Eretz HaKodesh, the Holy Land. Lo ist Masa levnei Adam lishlot alea. the land, even though the Westerners are going to come and fight these wars, it'll look like Israel, because we're just like playing ping pong, watching them fight. That the Westerners are going to take over the land of Israel. Like
Does it look like that?
it's going to look like they could easily just take over.
America?
America could take over Israel.
They have taken over since 76 years ago.
Right.
The state of Israel they are part of the Westerners.
Anyway, but it says in the Zohar that they're not going to take it over. B'ha'oz mona, in this time, Yis'ar amachad mi saifei alma. You ready for this? When they're going back and forth fighting each other. And it sounds like I think the fact that it says that they're not going to take over Israel, I'm guessing that what happened was the Westerners did better than the Arabs. But then what's going to happen? A nation that's on the end of the world, Sof Ha'olam, a nation from the end of the world is going to come. V'tavo roimi chayava, and it's going to come onto the Westerners, the Americans. It's going to attack the Americans.
North Korea?
Yeah, which ones? Which Americans? Harasha'ah. The evil Edomites, meaning the evil Westerners, are going to get attacked by a far-off country. Now, I think the farthest off country that could attack would be China.
Or North Korea.
North Korea and China, but they would probably do it together.
And in the world. I mean, it's-
Russia's right there
What
too.
if it's aliens?
No, Russia's not as far as China and North Korea.
Anyway, listen to what Zohar says. Zohar says,
Alaska?
It touches Alaska on the other side.
listen, a far-off land is going to come and go after the Western allies.
Oh, that's definitely North Korea.
Klomar b'nei Edom, meaning Westerners. U'tilachem ima shloisha chadashim. And it's going to be a 3-month war. Meaning probably China, some far-off land that's... Why do we have to pick pick China, most likely? Because it's a far-off place, A. B, it's got to be strong enough to beat the Allied Westerners. Meaning the Allied Christian countries are very, very strong militarily. They're only eclipsed by China's military. China's navy is much more powerful, and that's the sea. And anyway, they're going to come and they're going to have a 3-month war. V'yesfu, which makes me think nuclear, because how they could possibly be in a war that would only last 3 months. It's hard to imagine unless it's going to end nuclear. But anyway,
You know, in the Vilna says it will last 12 minutes.
12 minutes, well, that's probably the actual explosion. V'yasfu sham amim rabim lemachoma, and listen to this. All of a sudden, lots of nations are going to come gather. I'm guessing that's NATO. I'm guessing that the pact with all the NATO countries.
But wasn't NATO
Anyone know how many
part of
countries
Edom
are in NATO?
already? Wasn't NATO part of Edom already?
NATO? No, not necessarily. NATO doesn't always jump into things. That's why Trump's so
I thought-
PO'd about NATO. Is that Israel's always policing everybody, and NATO's just kind of not pitching in. So no, this means like it's mandated that all the Western countries have to come with soldiers. Like Switzerland's going to have to come. You know, Switzerland's a neutral country, but everyone's going to have to come.
It's 32.
What?
I looked at it, it's 32.
32 countries. So it's now it's 32 armies coming to fight basically China or some other far-off country. V'yasfu sham amim rabim lemochama v'yiplun b'nei romi v'yadayu. You ready for this? No, I made a mistake. The Westerners are fighting, and they're going back and forth, and then this far-off country comes, and Edom falls to them. They lose. The Western countries lose this war.
It's
Yeah.
like they lost in Vietnam.
No, very much not like that. Because it's all their armies, everybody, their whole their sovereignty is going to be gone.
So today,
They will no longer be a superpower. Vietnam didn't affect America as a superpower. They'll be gone.
after Vietnam, when I came to Israel, I spoke with Israelis, and Israelis told me that America finished its career with Vietnam. That's what Israelis told me. When I would speak to them on the street.
Yeah, of course, because it was an embarrassment to get beaten in Vietnam. But listen up. Let me fix this, okay? these Western allies, not the whole NATO, the Western allies come, they fight against Ishmael, a far-off land comes and fights them, and a 3-month war and wins. Okay? Who are the people who, so then it says,
Not against Ishmael.
listen to it, V'yasfu al kol b'nei Edom Allah, al roimi, mikol sefer Alma, mikol kitzei hateva, lehankam me'amim shekavshu et romi. And then guess what happens? The whole rest of the world, from the edge of the universe, like meaning all the way down to South America, the whole end, it says kitzei teva are going to come because they realize the world's going under. And if they don't come at the aid of Rome, of meaning Edom, of the Christian countries that fell, if they don't come at their aid, the whole game's over for them too. And so what happens is the whole world then comes to fight the far-off land, which is probably China. Everybody comes. I'll read it again. Mikol kitzei teva lehankam me'amim shekavshu et roimi, to strangle the nations that beat the West. They're coming after the nations that beat the West. And while they're all fighting in this massive world war, that's all taking place all because of this original story of Israel. Like no wonder Israel's always on the front page. Because they're in the end going to be the focus of this final war. So the whole world fights, and then all of a sudden, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, comes up over all of them. God's going to come and save these China, whoever it is, and wipe out the Christian countries. Yeah, he's going to wipe out the whole NATO thing and the whole everything. South America, all the nations that sent armies here.
And to save China?
They're going to get wiped out to save China, probably. Shecharivu es Beis Hamikdash. Why? Because they destroyed the second temple. Meaning, while you were all rooting for the West this whole time, you forgot about the fact that they have major debt to pay. And that is, they destroyed the Beis Hamikdash.
And China never touched the Beis Hamikdash.
Right, they don't even know what it is.
They probably supply the material to build the third.
Wow.
And not only because they destroyed Beis Hamikdash, you ready for this? Think about the Holocaust now and all the pogroms and all the what were those called? Crusades, wiping out whole cities of Jews. The Hitzaru, the Israel Begalus, and they caused pain to the Jewish people in their exile, meaning they persecuted. Hitzaru persecuted, meaning they're going to get killed in the end because God is going to go on the side of probably China, wipe out the whole West. Why? Because of the destruction of the second temple, which is still a debt they never paid, and because of the persecution. Meaning all that persecution the Jews have gone through is still a bill. It's still a bill that has to get paid by the West.
And so even though China, as evil as it is, because they never destroyed the Beis Hamikdash and they never touched the Jewish people,
They don't have the debt.
They don't have the debt.
There's a pasuk that says that there's going to be a slaughtering for God. Batzra Sheberoni. Batzra is a capital of part of Rome, like a big city of Rome, and this is going to be God's avenging. This is going to be God's korban, God's sacrifice or slaughter.
Isn't Basra a city in Iraq?
Yeah, also. But here it says Sheberoimi. Tevach behem lahankam mehem ulebasar da and achar kach. So what's going to happen next? Listen up, last piece here after China. God comes at the aid of China and wipes out all the Western countries. America, everyone's going down, according to the Zohar. So it says after that, Lechos be'kanfois ha'aretz. It says in the Eov, V'yisor rishoyim mimena ka'adam ha'oiches betalis u'minara. What's God going to do? He's going to shake off the evil people from Israel, from the land of Israel. He's going to shake them all off, like a person who takes a cloth or a talus or something, a rug or anything, and shakes off the dust. God's going to do this here. So don't think the Chinese are like taking over Israel. Everyone's going to get shaken off, like like someone shaking out a rug. All the evil people will be shaken off. And all the children of Israel will be shaken. Children of Yishmael, of the Arabs, will be shaken off. This is crazy. God's going to break the power of the ministering angels of the 70 nations. There's 70 ministering angels for each nation. And God's going to break their power. Meaning they're going to be neutralized. What happens when you neutralize what if someone neutralized the transformer that covers Nachlaot for power? What happens to Nachlaot? It's lights out. Meaning nations are only vivified. They're only given life from these ministering angels that God brings the power through. He's going to turn it off. God is going for full, grid shutdown on the ministering angels. And not just Yishmael, all of them, all 70 angels. And there will no longer be any power whatsoever for any ministering angel of any nation. It will only be all that will be left is the strength of the Jewish people. We don't have a ministering angel. That we're the only nation in the world that has a direct drive from Hashem. We don't have anything between us. Yeah, there's no chatzitza. There's no barrier between us and God. Meaning the rest of the world, they're happy they have this barrier. It's called an angel. But to us, an angel would be a barrier to us. We have a direct relationship. It's a fiber optic link to Hashem. And what will be left is the koach. It doesn't say the koach of Hashem. Kocham shel Yisrael. The strength of Israel. Shehi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is Hashem. It doesn't say the strength of Hashem. It says the strength of Israel. Well, what's the strength of Israel? Hashem. That's all that will be left. Zeu shenemar am Yisrael Hashem tzilcha yad yeminecha. That God's shade will be on your right hand. Kol yamin Hashem oisechaya. So, and it has to do with the right hand. The end of this is all about the right hand. The right hand is the kindness. It's the kol tului biyamin. Everything depends on the right hand. Shetzarich lagbias. I mean, you got to raise up the right hand over the left hand. The left hand's the gevura, limitation. Mipnei kedushas hayamin, because of the sanctity of the right. That the Torah was given with Hashem's right hand was the Torah given Zimna Da'asi in the future. In the future it will be fulfilled. Hoshia Yamincha V'aneni. Save us with your right hand and answer us. Uvahahu Zimna Ksiv Ala Oisa Zman Nemer Ki Az Epoch El Amim Safa B'ruah. And guess what's going to happen? All the nations of the world are going to have one clear language. Likro kulam b'shem Hashem. All the nations of the world are going to call in the name of God. La'avdoi shechem echad. To serve God, to serve Him. Shechem echad. I don't know how to translate that. The oid kasiv alois azman. The last words here now. And it's said about that time. What do you think? What pasuk do you think is going to come here? Did you say Vayomahu? Yeah. You win the ice cream. Vayomahu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad k'shiyis gala kvoid. And on that day, not only will God's name be one as it is upstairs, it's going to be one downstairs. what's going on here? The whole world's made of names. This whole world, how did God make a world? There is nothing but God. So how does he make a world? So he used his names and created the world through the names. But the problem is, once the name becomes styrofoam, you get styrofoam. I don't see God. Once you got cup and water, you see cup and water. So his name's one up there, but down here you see cups. But how are the nations of the world, after all these wars, going to suddenly speak one language, which would be the Holy Tongue, and praising God? How's that going to happen? Why? Because God's going to shine a light into this world, a light that was hidden away at the beginning of creation into the world. Well, what does it mean that God's going to shine a light? It's a light that's 7 times stronger than what you see right now. And what does that mean, a light shine? Well, how can there be a cup unless the light is filtered? If Hashem's light is filtered out, you can see a cup. But what if 7 times the amount of light could come through the filtering that makes physical cups? Well, what do you start to see? You start to see the letters inside the cup. Oh, well, once I see the letters inside the cup, it's the alphabet. It's the Hebrew alphabet. And you start to see the letters in the cup, suddenly you know Hebrew. And Hebrew starts coming out of your mouth. And now, and you don't have so much free will anymore because it's like everything's Hashem. And you're just like, Vayomahu, yeah, Hashem echad, Shmo echad. And everyone will praise Hashem, Kishi is galek vodo al kol haolam. When God's glory will be seen in the whole world, not just the Jewish people. Messiah Parshan, Baruch Adonai le'olam, Amen ve'amen. Blessed is Hashem forever. Amen ve'amen. Shkoyach.
There will be free will.